Do you think that the National Institute on Drug Abuse should relax the restrictions on government-approved medical research on marijuana?
Yes, and thankfully so does the TDA's administrative law judge. But the issue here is that if you want to do research on marijuana in this country, legally, you have to send your study for approval to the National Institute on Drug Abuse. You cannot receive a legal supply of marijuana unless NIDA approves your study. NIDA's policy has been they won't approve a study unless it's trying to prove the negative effects of marijuana. So if you're trying to prove medicinal benefits, they simply do not approve the studies. And if you're looking into marijuana for really any causes other than trying to prove negative effects, NIDA will not approve the studies. Then, not to mention, once they do approve the studies, the quality of the marijuana grown at the government's farm in Mississippi is so poor that the research is questionable. Thankfully, there actually was just a lawsuit that was filed by a researcher, I believe his name was Lyle Craker, out of University of Massachusetts Amherst, who said, you know what, the NIDA's been stonewalling us for too long, and when they do provide marijuana, it's such poor quality that we can't do legitimate research on it. And so they filed a lawsuit with the DEA to grow a private supply of high-quality marijuana at the University of Massachusetts Amherst for research into medicinal purposes. Thankfully, just recently, the DEA's administrative law judge came back with a ruling saying that they should, in fact, be able to do that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen because the head of the DEA, Karen Tandy, actually has to accept the recommendations of their own administrative law judge. And as we saw in the case of norml v. DEA back in 1988, when DEA's administrative law judge Francis Young ruled that marijuana was, quote, the safest therapeutically active substance known to man, the DEA administrator at the time, Jack Vaughn, threw the recommendations in the garbage and didn't change the scheduling. So we certainly hope that in this case, the DEA will take the recommendations of their own administrative law judge and allow the University of Mississippi to grow a quality supply of marijuana for legitimate medicinal research.
Yeah, I'm willing to certainly go where legitimate scientists say, and I think they ought to have the right to look at the science legitimately. I think false barriers, again, are very foolish. And I think if indeed it is a legitimate scientist who is ready to publish in peer-reviewed journals, I have no problem with that.
Can you send an email to Karen Tandy and ask her that?
Likely.
All right, that's a shame.
Bob, are there any long-term health effects associated with the recreational use of marijuana?
Yeah, there are all kinds, many of which were published in peer-reviewed journals, many of which are published in Mitch Earlywine's book, who was really sort of the icon of the reform movement as far as pharmaceutical guy goes. The long-term use of marijuana, especially by younger people, under age 25, clearly is associated with, we don't know if it causes or not, but clearly associated with amotivational syndrome, clearly associated with lung bronchial problems. Probably no proof that it causes, if it's funny guys, I'll stop talking. It's probably associated with lung and bronchial problems. Certainly no proof of long-term cancer, although there are a lot of doctors who just don't believe that smoking a product regularly does not contribute to that. It certainly causes problems with people thinking, especially kids, mathematical type equations, mathematical type problems, etc. There's a whole host of health issues that I think should be argued out by the scientists.